She said it without flinching. "This house belongs to us now. You were never really part of this family anyway." The door slammed. I stood there on the porch with my bags at my feet, a key that no longer worked, and an envelope in my hand that I hadn't opened yet. She had no idea what she'd just done. "My name is Carmela. I'm 36 years old, and I'm the middle child of 3 in a working-class Italian-American family where money was always tight and love was mostly expressed through showing up. We didn't have much, but we had the house. And for as long as I can remember, that house meant something. I was never the exciting one. I didn't move to a new city or chase a big career or post about my life online. I stayed close to home. I work as a licensed paralegal at a small law firm. Steady work, modest pay, nothing flashy. My apartment is 20 minutes from where I grew up. That was always just who I was. My relationship with my mother was something different. It wasn't loud or demonstrative. It was built over years of quiet consistency. I drove her to every doctor's appointment when her knees got bad. I sorted her insurance paperwork. I sat with her on the nights when she couldn't sleep and didn't want to be alone. We didn't need to say much. We just understood each other. My siblings, especially my older sister Diane, always treated that role like it was beneath them. Diane has a sharp personality and a sharper opinion of herself. My brother Kevin follows her lead in most things. To them, I was never quite a full sibling, just the one who stayed, the one who was useful when something needed doing. I wasn't glamorous. I didn't make the most money. But I paid attention, and my mother knew that. What nobody at that funeral knew was that Mom and I had a conversation 3 years ago that changed everything. If you've ever been the one who showed up while others got the credit, the one who quietly did the work while someone else took the bow, this story is for you. I see you, and I want you to keep watching, because what happens next took 3 years of patience and one very important envelope. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Drop it in the comments, and if you haven't already, subscribe and click like. It helps more than you know. Mom's funeral was on a Thursday. By Friday morning, I'd already been up for 2 days straight. I was the one who called the funeral home. I was the one who coordinated with the florist, confirmed the catering, printed the programs, and made sure the guest list was accurate. Diane flew in Wednesday night and immediately started rearranging the flower arrangements I had already placed. Kevin arrived Thursday morning, shook a few hands, and cried in a way that made sure everyone in the room could see him doing it. I didn't say anything. That was never my style. The reception was held at the family home, the way Mom would have wanted. Neighbors came. Extended family filled the living room. The smell of lilies and coffee and someone's too strong perfume hung over everything. It was a real gathering, warm in the way only slightly chaotic family events can be. That's when Diane pulled me aside in the kitchen. Her voice was low and controlled, almost businesslike. "Mom's gone now," she said. "This house goes to me and Kevin, you know that, right?" I stayed calm. But I'd heard versions of this before. Diane had always spoken about the house like it was already hers, like proximity to Mom's belongings was the same as ownership. I brushed it off the way I always did. Let her talk. What I didn't expect was what happened 40 minutes later. Diane stood up in the middle of the reception. The room got quiet. I was standing across the living room, a plate of food still in my hand, completely unprepared for what came next. She announced, with the warmth of someone making a toast, that she and Kevin would be taking over the property and that arrangements had already been made. She thanked everyone for their support. Guests nodded, cousins offered hugs, 2 neighbors actually congratulated her, and then she said it. She referred to me without using my name, as the one who was just here helping out. Not a daughter, a helper, a presence who had performed a function. I didn't move. Kevin was already walking a couple of relatives through the hallway like a man showing off a new purchase. He didn't look at me once. That evening, after the last guest left, Diane told me my old bedroom was being repurposed and that I should come by soon to collect my things. I asked as calmly as I could manage whether anyone had been in contact with Mom's attorney. Diane waved her hand. "We handled it. It's done." I reached into my bag and touched the envelope. I didn't open it. Not yet. They were so sure it was over. They had no idea it hadn't even started. 2 days after the funeral, I drove to the house to collect some of my mother's personal items, a few small things she had specifically told me she wanted me to have. A photo from her own mother's kitchen, her handwritten recipe cards, things with no monetary value but real meaning. The lock didn't work. I stood there for a moment, trying the key twice before it registered. Then Diane opened the door from the inside, arms crossed, expression flat. "We didn't think you'd be coming back. I'll box up whatever you think is yours." I was made to wait on the porch. My mother's porch. The porch where I had sat with her on summer evenings for 30 years. I stood outside like a guest who hadn't been invited, while my sister decided what I was permitted to take from my own mother's home. She brought out one box, some photographs. A cardigan that still smelled faintly like Mom's soap. A ceramic mug. The recipe cards were not in the box. I didn't ask about them. The second blow came from an unexpected direction. A sympathetic aunt messaged me a few days later. She had screenshotted something from a family group chat I hadn't been added to. Diane and Kevin were floating the idea of turning the house into a rental space for family gatherings. They had invited cousins, aunts, uncles. Everyone, it seemed, except me. Kevin had written in the chat, "We're the ones who always cared about this place. Some people just visited when it was convenient." Several cousins liked the message. I read it twice. Then I took a screenshot and said nothing. The third thing hit harder than the first two because it came dressed up as legality. Diane called me. When she said an attorney had reviewed their mother's wishes and confirmed the property transferred to the 2 oldest children. She told me I should stop making things difficult. I asked to see the documentation. "You can talk to our lawyer if you want," she said, "but I'd think hard about burning bridges over something you were never entitled to." Entitled. That word landed like a closed fist. She used it like I was a stranger asking for charity. Like 36 years of being present, of being the one who stayed, had entitled me to nothing. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I went back to my office that afternoon and quietly confirmed through my firm's resources that no deed transfer had been filed with the county. Not yet. Not ever, as far as the public record was concerned. That evening, I sat at my desk, pulled open the drawer, and took out the envelope. I read it again. Slowly this time. It was all right there. Every word Mom had said to me 3 years ago. It was real. It was legal, and it was mine. I want to tell you what was in that envelope, but to do that, I have to take you back 3 years. My voice gets steadier here. The anger had settled into something quieter, something that had been waiting. 3 years before Mom died, she called me into the kitchen one evening when the house was empty. It wasn't casual. There was a woman I didn't recognize sitting at the kitchen table with a folder. Mom introduced her simply as the notary. There were documents already laid out. Mom didn't make a speech. She explained it plainly. She was transferring the deed of the property into my name. Not through a will. Not as a future bequest. As a completed legal transaction, signed, notarized, and filed with the county recorder's office that same week. She had watched Diane and Kevin for years. She had seen how they handled money, how they handled relationships, how they talked about responsibility while leaving the actual weight of it to other people. She made her decision early, privately, and without any drama. That was her way. Before the notary left, Mom looked at me and said one thing: "Don't say a word until you need to. Just keep it safe." I kept that promise through 3 years of family dinners where Diane talked over me, through Kevin's offhand comments about my modest career, through every moment I was treated like the lesser sibling. I never said a word. What Diane didn't know was that every legal step had been taken years before Mom got sick. The house wasn't in Mom's name anymore. It was in mine. I had also been quietly consulting with a senior real estate attorney at my firm, a woman who owed me a professional favor from a complicated case 2 years back. I wasn't planning revenge. I was just done being patient. The man I needed to call was named Mr. Ostrowski. He was the notary attorney who had sat at that kitchen table 3 years ago, retired now, but meticulous in the way that only people who've spent decades working with documents can be. My mother had trusted him completely. I reached out and we met at a small coffee shop near his home. He was already there when I arrived, a folder sitting on the table in front of him. He slid it across before I even sat down fully. "Your mother was very clear about what she wanted," he said. "I've been waiting for you to call." Inside the folder, the deed transfer, the notarized signatures, the filing confirmation from the county recorder's office. Every page clean, every date in order. Meanwhile, Diane had begun her own quiet campaign. She was telling extended family that I was being emotional and making the grieving process harder for everyone. Kevin posted a tribute to Mom on social media, a long sentimental piece that centered himself and Diane as the devoted, present children. My name did not appear once. The aunt who had sent me the group chat screenshot messaged me again. "Honey, I don't know what's happening, but something feels wrong. You were the one who was always there." I thanked her and stayed quiet. I didn't post anything, didn't respond in the family chat, didn't defend myself to anyone who didn't ask directly. To Diane and Kevin, that silence looked like surrender. They grew more confident, more careless. Kevin announced in the group chat that a contractor was scheduled to come assess the house for renovation. Timelines were being set, plans were being made. I read the message, set my phone face down on the table, and called Mr. Ostrowski. They had moved from arrogant to reckless, and reckless people make mistakes. My firm's senior real estate attorney drafted the letter. It was formal, precise, and completely unambiguous. A certified notice sent to Diane and Kevin's attorney, informing them that the property had been legally transferred to my sole ownership 3 years prior and was fully recorded with the county. There was nothing to contest. There was no ambiguity. There was just the record. Diane called within the hour. Her voice was shaking, somewhere between fury and something that almost sounded like fear. "What did you do? You went behind our backs? Mom would never—" "Mom did," I said. 3 years ago, at the kitchen table. You were in Cancun that week, if I remember right. That's not legal. You manipulated her. She was already getting sick. She wasn't sick yet. She was sharp, she was deliberate, and she had a notary present. You're welcome to challenge it. Mr. Ostrowski is happy to testify." Silence. Kevin called 12 minutes later. The fury was gone. He had switched to negotiation mode, his voice smooth and careful. "Look, we're family. Can't we just figure something out? Split it somehow?" I let him finish. "You changed the locks on me the day after our mother's funeral," I said. "You announced to the whole family that the house was yours. You told me I wasn't entitled to anything. And now, you want to split something that was never yours? Carmela, come on. I'll give you 30 days to remove your belongings. That's more grace than you gave me." I ended the call. Their attorney reviewed the deed, reviewed the filing, reviewed every document Mr. Ostrowski had preserved with the careful attention of a man who knew exactly what he was doing when he notarized those signatures. He quietly advised them they had no case. The transfer was clean. The recording was valid. There was no path forward that didn't end with them losing. The family group chat went silent for 3 full days. And then the aunt sent me a single line. "I always knew your mama had good sense." I read it sitting in the kitchen of that house, my house, with the late afternoon light coming through the window the way it always had. No one was telling me where to stand. No one was deciding what I was allowed to take. It was quiet in a way it hadn't been since before the funeral. I didn't need them to apologize. I just needed them to understand that silence has a limit. Diane and Kevin were out within the 30 days. There was no final confrontation, no tearful phone call, no moment where anyone said sorry. They packed, they left, and that was that. I didn't sell the house. I never considered it, not even once. I repaired the small things Mom had always meant to get to. The sticky kitchen drawer, the light fixture in the hallway. The crack along the baseboard in the back room. I turned that back room into a quiet home office. It gets good light in the mornings. The aunt and I started talking regularly. Slowly, a few cousins reached out, not with drama or elaborate explanations, just quiet acknowledgement. They knew. Some of them had always known. They just hadn't said anything. I didn't demand apologies from anyone. I didn't need a reckoning or a public moment of vindication. I just moved forward with the clarity that comes from finally being exactly where you're supposed to be. The house became what Mom always intended it to be, a place of stability. Not performance, not inheritance theater. Just a home that reflects the person who actually cared for it. My final reflection is this. My mother didn't give me that house to hurt them. She gave it to me because she trusted me to take care of what mattered. I think I finally understand what that means. If you've ever been erased by the people who were supposed to see you, if you've ever been the one who stayed and showed up and quietly carried the weight while someone else stepped forward to take the credit, this one was for you. All of it. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had to prove your worth to people who should have already known it? I want to read every single one. And if this story meant something to you, click like. It helps this reach people who need to hear it. If this story hit you somewhere deep, it's probably because you've lived some version of it. The quiet ones, the dependable ones, the ones who never made a scene, but never forgot a thing. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. And share it with someone who's still waiting for the moment they finally get to say, I knew all along.